Richard Heydarian is a professor of political science at De La Salle University. He joins us now from Manila. Thank you for being with us. First off, is martial law the right response at this point, or is it a step too far?
Well, as you may know, President Rodrigo Duterte was actually meeting Vladimir Putin of Russia in Moscow just a few hours ago, had to cut short his trip to come back to the Philippines to show that the situation is probably very critical, and that's why he needs to be back here in the country and cut short a very important trip. Now, the thing is, there's a lot of question on why, first of all, there was a martial law declared, because there are other measures that the executive branch can use, for instance, emergency powers and a state of lawlessness, for instance, in order to mobilize the armed forces to deal with any kind of national security threat. And the other question is why the martial law was declared all over the island of Mindanao, where Duterte comes from, instead of only in Marawi City, where the siege by the ISIS affiliate group, the Mawete group, or the so-called Islamic State of Lanao took place. So those are the big questions. Now, per Philippine Constitution, within 48 hours, President Duterte should submit a letter and justify to the Philippine Congress that the martial law is the right way forward, it's the only way forward. And assuming the Philippine Congress will give the nod ahead, the Philippine Supreme Court could later on step in if there are complaints by other concerned citizens in the country, because I'm very sure there are a lot of people in the Philippines who are quite allergic to the word martial law because of the dark memories from the dictatorship of the Marcos period in the 1970s and 80s.
Yeah, is there likely to be a lot of opposition to this in the Congress?
Well, the Congress right now is actually dominated by Duterte allies, but a lot of these allies are tactical allies. So I think if there is a public backlash, if there's a concerted effort by organized civil society groups to show that, martial law is not the way forward, and if a lot of lawyers and legal experts will question it openly in the media, then it's possible that some of these opportunistic allies of the president will dilly-dally and try to drag their foot on this. But I think since the martial law is confined so far to Mindanao, which in the eyes of many people is actually quite a lawless area, then one would be surprised if the Congress will give a nod ahead. But I also expect that the Supreme Court will later on step in and question the validity of whether martial law is the way forward. Now, the bigger question here is how serious the threat of terrorism and the threat of an ISIS distant caliphate here in the Philippines. The other question that Duterte has to answer. And the fact that Duterte is the only president, the first Filipino president from Mindanao, puts more pressure on him to prove that he is going to be capable in dealing with the problem of terrorism. So there's also a lot of pressure on the part of Duterte right now, not only to prove that martial law is the way forward, but to also prove that as the first president from Mindanao, he can deal with this problem more effectively than any alternative leader in the country.
Richard Heydarian, thanks very much for being with us.